So about 8 months ago, I was working as an Apple certified technician, part-time of course. Everything I do is part-time except my full-time job, which is design engineer for Moog. So one day I was on Craigslist, I'm on Craigslist every day. I like looking for jobs, it's kind of fun to see what they have to offer out there. And I found a job, Apple certified technician. I click on it, there's a description that says they're looking for somebody, or actually he's looking for somebody, one guy. He's looking for somebody to replace him temporarily. And the job description is, you have to go to people's homes, you have to fix their Apple related devices, problems, anything that happens with Apple devices. Not even problems. If they have a computer that they buy, I would go to the Apple store on State Street in Santa Barbara and install it for them. If they were having trouble with their routers or with their airports, I would go and I would fix them with their phones, with so many different things. And that's actually a career. So that's the description of the job. The pay was $50, 50, which is a good amount of money for a part-time job, and it was cash. On paper, this is a really good job for an engineer, for anybody really. I get to go to people's homes, I get to consult. I am an Apple certified technician, even though I never really got certified by Apple. He was, I wasn't, but I worked under him. So I started going to people's homes, and it was kind of nice at first. I would go on Saturdays, I would go on Sundays, I would drive up to Santa Barbara, the hills, and the people, like the clients were typically on the older side. I would get to their home. How you doing? Good. What's the problem? Oh, well, my computer won't turn on. It's kind of slow. All right, let's look at that. I would go on there, and there are some things that I did not know because he didn't really interview me. So I would go in there, and I would kind of Google some things. I would say, look, actually, this is kind of running slow. It's running slow for this reason. Let me check it out. And I would go on my phone, and I would go on the computer and Google it. And of course, once you Google it, then you know what to do. I had stopped using Macs for a while, so my brain was kind of slow when it came to Macs. I was more of a PC. That's what I used at work. I would catch on quickly, of course, maybe a minute, and I would be able to solve all of the problems, except if it was hardware related when the thing was just too old. Then the only solution was new products, new computer, which they had no problem doing, and they would suggest it themselves. I would never suggest it. Everything was fine until I was asked to go in on the weekdays, which I work full time. My job is pretty flexible. So one day I left a little early, and I spent an hour at this person's house. He was a professor at UCSB, and I came back to work, and I was fine, but then it became a habit. And at the most random times, he would ask me to go visit clients, and I just couldn't go because I was working. One time, I think it was my last call. I went to a home in Santa Barbara, and dude, this home was the biggest home I have ever seen in my life. This home was rented because, if you guys don't know, Montecito, which is here in Santa Barbara, had a couple of disasters like floods and fires and all these bad things that happened. So a bunch of homes got knocked down. And this couple rented out a home in Santa Barbara right in front of the beach. Like literally, here's the beach, here's the road, here's their house. And it was almost a whole block. Guess how much this house was rented for by these people? If you guess $20,000 a month, you're wrong. If you guess $80,000 a month, then you're still wrong. $100,000. $1,000,000. That's how much money they rented this place out for a month. I got there, and I thought it was a complex. They thought it was a resort. And I'm looking for people. Hello? Is anybody here? I hear a voice. So I say, where are you? Oh, come upstairs. And I go upstairs, and it's their chef. And then this is when I ask him, so where's the computer that I have to fix? Oh, I don't know. That's when he explained to me that the house was rented and for how much. And I looked it up and I confirmed the details. It's rented for $100,000 a month. It's not owned right now by them. It's rented out. And I was there for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. It was a kind of a long job. Then I went the next day. And I really didn't want to, and I really couldn't. But I dropped what I was doing to go in the afternoon. I extended it as long as possible. and I got paid $50 every hour, cash, which is really nice. But the inconvenience of having no fixed schedule, of having to almost feel guilt tripped that I couldn't make it when it was known in advance that I was working full time. So I told this guy, hey, I can't do this anymore. He didn't like it that much because I had just started maybe 2 months prior to me leaving. But he had to understand, he maybe understood, I think he did understand why I was leaving. And he didn't want to pay me my last check, and it got kind of complicated. He ended up giving me half, and I said, well, whatever, I'm going to drop it. So I dropped it. Not a big deal. It wasn't that many hours that I worked that he didn't pay me for. It was an experience that I'm glad I had. I went to a home where I had no signal 10 minutes in. This home was so remote, and I walked inside, and there's a bunch of paintings on the wall. A bunch of paintings, a bunch of sculptures. And it turns out this guy was a painter. He was an artist. So I had never met a full-time artist. You know, some guy who just makes a living from painting. That was kind of unique. I met another lady who was also an artist. And she was younger. She was the youngest client that I had. You know, I got to meet a lot of interesting people. And I'm glad I did this. And I'm glad I realized that sometimes money on paper is a little bit higher for a reason. I would end up driving 30 minutes to be there an hour. Drive back 30 minutes. I would get 50 an hour. I would get paid $50 an hour. But in reality, I was making $25 an hour, which wasn't worth it for me. So that's why I quit that job. You know, sometimes it looks good on paper, things look good on paper, but I was catfished by this job. This job was meant for somebody who had no job, was very flexible, and didn't mind the commute. I was not too flexible. I did mind the commute, so the job wasn't for me. Maybe in the future, a different job will pop up that's similar, that's on my terms, my schedule, then we'll totally do it. But for now, I had to quit. So that's why I quit a part-time job that paid me $50 an hour. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.